Hello, this is Gray Hughes of Gray Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Please hit that like button, share the video, and subscribe. In the newly released document, there's about 155 page document that came out that has some autopsy notes, and it has various rebuttals, and it's really a really interesting document. But one of the more interesting elements to me is the stain D right here. Probably a transfer of some sort. Let's see what it says right here. Stain D is located on the north side of the wooden ledge of the half wall in the living room. The location of stain D is depicted in DSC 4682, and a closer view is depicted in DSC 4683 cropped. Stain D was tested for the presumptive presence of blood and was positive. Stain D is a transfer blood stain. So there you go, it is transfer. Subsequent testing of stain D on the edge of the ledge showed a mixture of DNA, Ethan Chapin being the primary contributor. There is no physical evidence to indicate that Ethan Chapin was ever outside of the bedroom after sustaining his bloodletting injuries. Now, there's speculation out there that maybe one of the people, it could even be Hunter Johnson when he went in there, maybe was checking for a pulse, got a little bit of blood on him, put it on the stairs coming down. It could be one of the first responders, one of the crime scene techs, one of the detectives, one of the first officers. We don't know, but I would assume that when law enforcement is, going to a scene and documenting everything, they're aware of those kind of things and wouldn't put something like that in to a document. So let's assume for a minute that this mark right here, this transfer stain, is Ethan Chapin's and was put there by Kohberger. He's the only person that could have put it there. I guess what we don't know is what Xana Kernodle was doing. We now know that there is DNA from later down in the same document of Ethan Chapin on Xana Kernodle's both her hands. So is it possible, I guess, that even after going to the room, she was chased around? She's the one wild card. We don't know what she was doing. We don't have any indication of exactly her movements, etc. But it could also be Kohberger. But it's just absolutely crazy that somehow way over on the almost the end. See where the top of the stairs is here? That means it's likely past the pong table. So let's go on my 3D model here, and if you look right here, there's the end. And that was right around in this area. So that means, Kohberger or whoever left it there probably would have had to come past the pong table and transfer the blood on that railing right there. I think that's one of the more interesting blood stains. Now, there's every other blood stain found out in this area. There's blood stains that are on this wall over here, or, cast off. Droplets, but they're all diluted. So it makes you wonder if Kohberger had a bloody knife and then he somehow got water on it, tried to, rinse it off or whatever on his way out. Let's say it from upstairs. See, we don't know. Was there any blood up in the bathroom? I guess we don't know the answer to that. But what if he tried to clean the knife of blood and then as he's, after he cleans it, that's when he interacts with Xana, and there's water on the knife, and he comes down, chasing her, and then there's cast off that combines water and the blood, but that wouldn't explain Xana Kernodle's blood that's also diluted, because that means he would have already had to have attacked her. So did he put water on it in that bathroom? Doesn't seem like it. There's nothing in the documents that indicates that at all. So it's just really interesting, the dynamic. There is a lot of diluted blood cast off and transfer in the area. Ethan Chapin's was not, though. It was just pure blood, and I guess he's the major contributor, so maybe there was some other DNA with that. We don't know. And here's a picture of Ethan Chapin's transfer blood here. And it looks like it was something that was initially contacted right here and then slid this direction. And then this is the hallway. Dylan Mortenson's room's right there, so that means that the pong table is right there. And just like I said, this is on the left side, closer to the top of the stairs. So it's interesting that he would go that far over there and be a transfer. That means Kohberger was in that area if it did come from him. Now, if it came from any of those other people, it could have just been when they're going down the stairs, they touch there. More likely when they're walking from Xana's room to the top of the stairs to go down is when they would have left that there. You'd have to reach up in the air, sort of. It would just be awkward to have transferred that later, and it doesn't look like going down the stairs, that's the direction of the transfer. To me, it looks like the direction is from right to left in this image right here. And I also found this section really interesting. This is the rebuttal section where they're discussing different theories by when the defense claims certain things and then the prosecution rebuttals. So it says, Dr. Turvey refers to indicators of more than one assailant. That was the defense expert witness. They said, it is not reasonable to think that Ethan would have remained in his bed after waking up or being awake while Xana was being attacked in front of him. This evidence and context begin to suggest the existence of a second attacker. This issue will be addressed in a later section of this report. And then that was 9, and this is 9b. Number of suspects. At least 2 suspects were involved in this attack. This is indicated by the fact that multiple weapons were used against Kaylee. That multiple weapons of lethal force were used against Kaylee, and that Ethan and Xana appear to have been attacked at the same time. This is inconsistent with the state's theory that these crimes were committed solely by one individual. And that is just such a ludicrous assumption to say that because we know what he's referring to, there's a pattern on Kaylee's head or face. Likely could even be the butt of the knife. It could be something he found at the scene. We don't know. But it doesn't even mean it was a second weapon brought to the scene. It was just something used differently. For example, again, the butt of the knife, or let's say he had a flashlight or whatever, right? A flashlight's not a weapon. You can use it as one. But it's just it's a crazy thing to claim because there seem to be 2 different types, like there's stab wounds and then a blunt injury mark, that somehow that means that there's 2 assailants. That kind of logic is ridiculous, okay? But then down here, the rebuttal by the state said, there is evidence that Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle were in close proximity to each other at some point after the assault began. And I just think this is so interesting. And it says, evidence by the finding of Kernodle's blood and DNA under the fingernails of Ethan Chapin's right hand, and the finding of Chapin's blood and DNA under the fingernails of both of Xana Kernodle's hands. One assailant could contain 2 people in close proximity to each other, especially if the assailant is armed. A single perpetrator can certainly use more than one weapon and can use multiple types of lethal force. And so that's a very logical response there. So let's take a look at this. Here is the room, and Xana was pretty close to how I have it here. Obviously, there's a nightstand here. I think, given the way this looks, obviously both of them were bleeding when the other person touched them. And I believe the way it went down was that Kohberger went into the room. He immediately stabbed Ethan in the neck. Xana was like, what happened? She's right there too. And she's saying, I think I can hear on the audio, get out, get out, get out. she's trying to get the guy to get out, and she's trying to help Ethan, maybe even grabs him near the neck area or something, trying to stop the bleeding, and then blood gets on her hands, and then maybe at that same time Ethan reaches up with his right hand to say, hey, and then he bleeds out, and then Xana is then shoved into the nightstand. That's the loud thud we hear on the audio, and there's blood all over that place, and he just goes in a frenzy, and then I think at the end he cuts Ethan Chapin up more. So I think it went Ethan, Xana, Ethan, and they interacted with each other. I found that fascinating. I didn't have any idea that was happening, but I think Ethan Chapin was sleeping and they came to the room, and he just never had time to react to anything. And Xana Kernodle was highly, highly intoxicated. So she probably didn't know what the hell was going on and was just totally out of it. I mean, she's tried to fight. She was moving around. She'd just eaten, but she's very intoxicated. Extreme high alcohol blood level, I think 3 times the legal limit. And I think she tried to defend herself, and for her it was an absolute nightmare. I think Ethan just had a short amount of time where he's awake, where Xana is moving around, and she was awake the whole time. And I think Kaylee and Madsion were both killed very quickly as well, and they were both sleeping in the bed. And the information that we were reading about was that most of the wounds are from the waist up, and it seems like they were just laying in bed, and he came in there and just started stabbing them over and over and over again. I mean, absolute psycho. It seems like he probably went after Madsion Mogen first. Then Kaylee woke up, Madison's bleeding out, and then he starts pummeling Kaylee Goncalves, and then maybe he goes back and just continues to stab both of them. And there, you see the cast off all over the place. It's really, really brutal scene. All right. But those are 2 elements that I thought were really interesting. Leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think is the possibility of how this went down and why there is Ethan Chapin's blood on the side rail right over here. Just right off the side right there on the other side even. So it couldn't have been cast off, and it isn't. It's transferred. So, somebody came by with blood on their hand likely and smeared it there and then left. Now, put in there, do you think it was one of the techs? Do you think it was Kohberger? If it's Kohberger, when did that happen? Because it seems odd that he would go over this way. Why wouldn't he just turn and come out here? However, if he went around like this, he would be far over to the left and closer to, Dylan's room as he walks through that opening right there. Okay, so here's the room. And so you would think that he would have turned just before here. I walk right through the middle of it, but there is Dylan's room. And in this video, this is when he goes, I just have it, this is a walkthrough. This isn't the order, right? But so it would have been right here, you would take a right and exit. And after you exit, this is what it looks like. See, there's the beer pong table. This is Dylan's room. And then right when he turned right, it would look like that going out the slider, right like that. Okay. So again, leave your comments in the comment section. Let me know what you think, and we can start a debate in there. But I found these 2 elements interesting. I'm going to go over the rest of the elements in another video. But I appreciate you watching. And as I always say, everybody, until next time, be safe out there.